A battle of the two big K's in JJK. How intriguing. What's up, guys? So I'm here to do a breakdown / live reaction review to Lumiere's Kashimo vs Kenjaku is not what you expect. And I am intrigued. I'm intrigued. As a Jaku jacker who's kind of getting scared as he reconsiders Kenjaku's place in the general scaling of the universe, and as a Kashimo claimer who's going back and forth on whether or not he actually like high rates the guy or low rates the guy, these are two characters who I'm like very much in flux about, and I'm interested to see what Lumiere has to say in a battle between the two. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Editing me. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do need to have it on and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, Kashimo vs Kenjaku is a weird one based on how you scale both of them. Now, if you were to go off the most linear, flat, juicy, and scrumdiddlyumptious line of scaling there is, aka kind of the only one at this point, but still a line of scaling, you would assume that Kashimo and Akari and Jackpot are relative to some degree. Naturally, Kashimo is able to eat hits, he's able to do damage back, he's able to keep up, he's able to do damage with his lightning attacks, all that, bada bing, bada boom, they're relative. Presumably, they stay relative, considering, Suguna notes, the only thing that increases over the time skip is the durability of some of the combatants. Now, if there are other stats, that would mean that Akari in Jackpot is still relative to Kashimo in base. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bing, bada boom, bada bow. Then, naturally, since Akari has all the statements of him being relative to Yuta in some way, shape, or form, whether you think it's base Yuta, full power Yuta, bada bing, bada boom, bada bow, bada bing, then Kashimo has to be relative to Yuta. And then Yuta has this funny little, silly little, goofy little feat of scaring the soul out of Kenjaku. Like genuinely having Kenjaku on the run for his life and consistently looking over his shoulder to make sure he can deal with Yuta. And then Kenjaku actually gets to meet Yuta in a 1v1, of course, while Boogie Woogie's involved, and his brain is scrambled by the good old juicy, scrumbly-umptious, delicioso, dare I say, Boogie Woogie plus comedian combo. But Kenny goes to activate a AoE ability, right? He doesn't try to activate Curse Spirit Manipulation, he doesn't try to activate a Domain Expansion, no, an AoE ability in his gravity technique, and Yuta still completes the swing before Kenny can even activate it. So, at least speed-wise, if Kashimo in base, by the way, is relative to base Yuta, once again, super low-balling all the Akari statements because he's relative to Jackpot Akari, then Kashimo in base should have a distinctive speed advantage. And the AP to at least harm Kenjaku, and then definitely, undeniably, the lightning bolt would literally slaughter Kenjaku. However, despite having a possible stat gap, domain expansion. Open barriered domain expansion. Kashimo loses still. Even if he goes NBA, which he wouldn't against Kenjaku, he loses to a domain. Unfortunately, while Hollow Wicker Basket seems to be okay as a domain counter, solid enough if you can maintain it consistently, yeah, Kenny still gives Kashimo back just because of domain. That's the thing. Stat-wise, I will fully give you Kashimo hypothetically being higher than Kenny based on their respective scaling lines and Kenjaku's general lack of scaling outside of what Adult Ghetto has in his one fight. That's not under the influence of the comedian. But outside of that, I don't really see... Oh, and I guess Curse Spirit Spam. The one thing I'll give Curse Spirit Spam for Kenjaku against Kashimo is that he can likely do that into domain. Or do gravity into Curse Spirit Spam into domain. And it would be effective against Kashimo in a way it wouldn't be effective against someone like Yuta, or someone like Toji, or someone like Maki, or someone like... maybe... No, I think it'd actually be pretty effective against Yuji still, just because Toji and Maki have Duranex swords and a distinct speed advantage and would be able to do devious and diabolical things to all the curses that would be thrown at them. Yuta can literally spit out RCT on command. Jackpot Akari possibly leaks RCT, which would be crazy, and he could probably just bull rush through them. And Kashimo kind of doesn't have that. While his punches should be able to one-shot any curse, if Kenjaku's throwing hundreds at him at once, like he's got to individually punch and kick every single one, and he can't just like run through with a sword in front of him or run through leaking RCT like someone like Yuta can. So CSM in the domain expansion is still a crazy win con, and I still think Kenny could pull it off. Even if I will readily agree that Kashimo probably has better stats. However, that's what I think. Please tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Also, I do like the app. As you can clearly tell, I am 4 minutes into this reaction video, and I'm not even 1 second into the video itself that I'm reacting to. So, please, link to Lumiere's channel will be in the description down below. Please click on it. Please check it out. Go over there. He's a fantastic JDK content creator. He's posting more consistently now. This video is posted 7 days from his most recent video, which I also live reacted to. So, please go check Lumiere out. Hop in the comments, tell him I sent you. I greatly appreciate it. But let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into Kashimo versus Kenjaku is not what you expect.
Kashimo, the god of lightning, versus Noritoshi Kamo, aka Kenjaku, the most evil sorcerer in history. These two sorcerers have known each other for hundreds of years. We even get a few panels of them interacting. In these panels, Kashimo is trying to fight the strongest person possible to get rid of the loneliness that comes with being the strongest. But the most important part of this interaction, which made me make this video, was when Kashimo said, "I should have fought you," to Kenjaku. In the moment, Kenjaku says to spare him. He's not fit for fighting at the moment, but like anyone else, it got me thinking, who would win if Kenjaku and Kashimo fought? And in this video, I'll answer that question. First, we'll go over their abilities. I'll be highlighting the most important information of their abilities that could help them win this fight. The first person we'll talk about is Kashimo. As we all know, Kashimo has a curse technique, but it's a one-time use. And after it runs out, Kashimo despawns from the map. An important factor to consider here is if he'll use it against Kenjaku. But since we're going over the abilities first, I will talk about that later on once we start actually analyzing the fight, aside from having a curse technique.
Okay. I mean, like, here's my big thing. And, like, especially as I write Kashimo battles, and even redo some Kashimo battles I was writing before. At least in my opinion, if we're doing a versus battle in the first place, which doesn't have to be canon compliant, unless you're like me and like be extra edgy and like want to make all versus battles canon compliant in some way, like a what if timeline, which I try to do for all my versus battles, which is why sometimes my battles have short intros, long intros, yada yada, everything in between. Then we can just like never talk about NBA Kashimo unless we're covering him versus Sukuna. So I always just say he's going to use it one way or another, because like otherwise you lock off half his kit, more than half his kit. Ultramagnetic waves, the extra third eye, the raw stat, like you lock away a whole bunch of his bag. And honestly, without a lot of his bag, he really struggles to even make it into the top 10. That's not a lie, that's a lie. With a scaling, it's a lie. But still, it's rough for him. You really want to give him his full bag. And even then, a lot of the times, his full bag, thanks to his lack of feats, and honestly, the feats of other characters, which are funky and weird, how they interact with Kashimo's feats, because of how you scale that fresh Sukuna, or the freshly incarnated Sukuna, they're kind of not good unless you highball. But maybe not highball. It's weird. But let's see.
Kashimo's curse energy has an electric
it's only in my right ear.
Bypass curse energy reinforcement. The only way you can...
I don't know. For any of y'all wearing headphones, when the video's playing, do y'all hear his audio? Like, I hear his audio in my right ear, but then I hear like the Dragon Ball music in my left ear. I don't know. I wanted to learn how to do that too, like the audio mixing, but I don't know how to do that yet. Give me some time. I'm still trying to figure out editing. That's it.
Negate Kashimo's trait is if you have an immense amount of curse energy in your reinforcement. Kashimo also has lightning strikes, which do a lot of damage, and the craziest part is that it's a sure hit without him needing to use a domain, but it does have a cooldown. Kashimo also has a staff that he can use for his lightning strikes, which was effective against Hikari. Kashimo has Hollow Wicker Basket, so he can somewhat defend against domain attacks. Those are all of Kashimo's abilities. Now let's talk about Kenjaku's. Kenjaku is in Gero's body, so for one of his abilities, it's gonna be the Curse Spirit Manipulation technique, which is self-explanatory. Another one of his abilities is Gravity. It's important that you guys are aware that the base version of this curse technique is anti-gravity, but Kenjaku uses a reversal version of it, which does the opposite. Instead of negating gravity, it reinforces gravity. Same concept that Gojo has with red and blue. Blue attracts, and red, which is the reversal technique, repels. This does have a radius of 2 or 3 meters from Kenjaku, and it lasts for 6 seconds. Kenjaku is the best user of barriers. He even has a barrierless domain like Sukuna. Kenjaku also has an advanced reverse curse technique, being able to heal.
That domain. Let me just chat real quick. I'm being so quiet. I'm like, I'm trying to like let videos flow better, because I've noticed like it's a lot of my reaction videos. I'll just pause every 2 seconds. But that barrier, that open barrier domain, saves Kenjaku from getting diffed by so many characters. It saves him once again, because especially now that the Rika adult ghetto circle jerk has been explained to me in a way that makes sense based on what happened in the manga. Now, he is struggling. He is because this is the lack of feats, man. Because the lack of feats, man. He battled one person, man, and like the JJK high at the end of Shibuya when they're all fatigued or random. Like, it's just so Kenny, man, Kenny, my boy, where are your stats at? I'm sorry, you had the same guy as the body who lost to Baby Yuta. It was like not fully keeping up with him. I know he would have won if he had all his curses, but still, like, dog, what? Your stats peak at Baby Yuta level. And a suppressed Rika. Essentially, let me quickly explain, because maybe wondering, Pencil, what are you even talking about the Rika Kenny ghetto circle jerk? So, like, before I had it explained to me, I was like, why on earth are we really downplaying Ghetto's physicals when not only does he have that one statement where apparently he has better grip strength than even Gojo, which implies his overall physicals may be superior to Gojo just based on his height and regular musculature build, but not only that, on top of that, he has the feats on Rika, where he's able to block and redirect and knock around Rika a little bit in the movie and even in the manga. But as people explain to me, realistically, Rika was likely holding back, which sounds so crazy. But remember, Yuta told her to keep pace with him. So Baby Yuta, maybe booty butt cheeks, but Rika was also forced to suppress herself to be booty butt cheeks in order to keep up with Baby Yuta. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it is entirely possible to reason the circle jerk away with that. And then, if that's the case, Kenny's physicals, they just aren't there. Because Ghetto's physicals just aren't there. And that's unfortunate, very unfortunate. Let's see.
Of his broken arms, he also has Uzumaki, which he has a maximum version and a tiny version. Now, I'm going to be assessing their strength and comparing them. Both of these characters have few fights to go off of. Kenjaku is mostly narrative implications, and his Yuki fight, Kashimo has more fights to bite off. Since Kashimo scaling is easier to explain, I'll be analyzing him first.
I would say, even with the breadcrumbs both are given, Kashimo unironically has better breadcrumbs. You may be like, Pencil, that's insane. You can't say that. How on earth does Kashimo have better breadcrumbs than Kenjaku? Yuki scales nowhere. Tell me where she scales. Tell me. But she's a special grade tier. What does that mean? So is Ghetto. And ask half the fandom, Ghetto's fodder, even though he's a special grade sorcerer. Most people don't even have Ghetto in their top 15, not to talk about their top 10 or top 5. So, like, being a special grade ain't enough. And her feats on Kenny ain't that good. And Kenny's feats ain't that good, because his only feats are feats on her. Come back to me. Meanwhile, Kashimo, he has feats against Jackpot Akari. Sure, does he get overwhelmed sometimes? Yeah, but still he's able to keep up and do damage in base before he gets a massive amp and gets a possible 5 times multiplier if you go to the Gojo statement at the beginning of the series. Uh-oh. That's not good for Kenny. Because if he's already in base relative to Jackpot Akari, who, according to Yuta, can either be stronger than him, or according to Gojo, might at least be relative to Yuta. Uh-oh. The same guy who one-shot Kenjaku with a sword. Uh-oh. Something tells me that Kenny would get back shots, scaling-wise, but Kenny has that domain. And Kashimo ain't got an answer to that domain. And here's the thing, even if you think, especially if you're in the camp that Kenny's relative to Yuta and he only got his head sliced off and took a whole bunch of damage because he was mentally nerfed after the Takaba fight and was off guard, plus the Boogie Woogie disoriented him, bada bing bada boom, then even worse, Kenny spams curses and domain diffs Kashimo in base, and then when Kashimo goes to activate NBA, he gets domain diffed again, presumably. Let's see.
Kashimo in base was relative to Jackpot Hakari without using his curse technique. He still posed a major threat to Hakari. There were multiple times where Kashimo could have killed Hakari. In chapter 188, Kashimo had struck Hakari fatally, but didn't follow up with an attack because he didn't expect Hakari to still be able to open his domain again and have another chance at Jackpot. If Kashimo knew this beforehand, he definitely would have killed Hakari. Another instance...
Only thing is though, the one thing I'll give, that's base Hakari. And base Akari has no implications to be relative to Yuta. I'll give that. The best base Akari scaling you have is having him relative to or above start of Culling Games Yuji, post fully healed Demon God Yuji. That's about all you can have for base Akari. So being able to kill base Akari isn't anywhere near as impressive as possibly being able to kill Jackpot Akari and do damage to him, who actually has like the Yuta implications. There's that. Let's see.
Something similar happened was against Charles. Charles had struck Hakari fatally too, like Kashimo, and didn't follow up because him and Kashimo didn't expect for him to be able to hit Jackpot again or open his domain. This to me shows that Kashimo would definitely win in a rematch against Hakari. At least physically and with CE reinforcement, they were exchanging. The fist fighting wasn't a threat to either of them, but they both noted that their abilities were where the danger truly lies at. So I think strength-wise, they're definitely on the same level, but in a fight, Kashimo does have the edge due to his lightning ability. This is good because off this, we can connect Kashimo to the same level of strength as other fighters. For example, Urame, Yuta, and Maki. Now, we have Kashimo's curse technique, which is basically a transformation, but is obviously stronger. Unfortunately, in this fight against Maguna, Kashimo didn't have any good scaling. He did get a few hits on Sukuna, but they were both off guard. The first one was because of the sudden change of speed from the technique activation. This is reinforced when Kashimo pops up in front of Maguna, and Maguna's able to dodge it. The second one, Maguna's vision was blocked from Kashimo's blast, which allowed Kashimo to get in another hit. So in this fight, it kind of seemed like Kashimo had the advantage in movement speed, but not enough to where he could completely blitz Sukuna because he was still reacting and dodging to the attacks whenever he was given a fair chance to do so. Afterwards, we do have a potential feat for Kashimo. It's when he uses his lightning strike on Maguna. The reason why I say potential feat is because this isn't something extremely concrete, but I do think it's pretty reasonable. As we know, the lightning strike is a sure hit, and every time it's hit people like Akari, who had his reinforcement maxed out, it blew him up. Maguna was already in a state that Kenjaku had mentioned. That's the only state the students could beat him in, and it sort of seems like Kashimo using his lightning strike, it forced Maguna to transform. I think we could all agree that that was gonna do some.
The one thing I've always wondered about that scene, did the bolt, I mean, I'm assuming it had to work that way. The bolt had to hit, right? Like, I'm assuming what happened is the bolt tags Sukuna. Sukuna begins to die, like, depending on where it hit him. Like, notably in that panel, it looks like it's going for his head, or like at least his chest. So I'm assuming what happened, Megana let the bolt hit, it exploded, destroying part of him, and then he completed his incarnation, so he could get the full refresh. But still, being able to blow a massive chunk in Maguna ain't bad. It really ain't a bad feat for the bolt. And then you kind of have to assume the bolt would hit because it's a sure hit, right? It has to. But I've seen some people try to downplay the bolt, or even reasonably downplay the bolt by saying, we don't see it hit, so maybe he did no damage, and then Sukuna incarnated anyway because he didn't want to risk it. But at the same time, if Sukuna had to incarnate, he didn't want to risk it. So, like, I would say that NBA Kashimo scales solidly above, like, that with fatigue Sukuna. Like, come on. Let's see.
Serious damage to Maguna. So this only reinforces everything we've said about Kashimo.
Some people, even in the big 2024, are pretty skeptical about how much damage Kashimo's lightning can do to people outside of Akari and maybe even Yuta, which honestly to me is pretty ridiculous.
Jaded jump scare? What? I am so bamboozled. Jaded, where did you come from? I've seen that. I saw that Gojo video too. I do want to react to that video. But like, Jaded, what the? I mean, there's nothing better than an unexpected jump scare. In fact, I need to make time. I need to take time to like do more collabs because there's nothing more fun than like doing that collab with those collabs both with Flame. Let's see.
When you remember that Hakari had taken a blue punch from Gojo, which keep in mind, this punch can damage even Maguna at 20 fingers worth of his original power, and his reaction to that punch is literally just throwing up, which is pretty significant, but when you compare it to the amount of damage done to Akari by Kashimo's lightning, it's not even really close. You could make the argument that we don't know if Akari is in jackpot by the time he took this Gojo punch, but judging by his...
He very likely wasn't. I mean... I doubt it. Just like I don't think Yuto's in full power when he hit that punch. But then again, I'm also one of those weird fellas that doesn't think Yuta gets much more other than his curse technique and the Rika connection when he gets full power. I think base Yuta and full power Yuta have the exact same stats. It's just that he has fully manifested Rika, which is a stat buff for Rika, and he gets his curse technique, which is also a huge stat buff. I don't think his physicals or any of his stats come any better when he gets that 5-minute full power time limit. But that's just me, though. That's just me. I've seen other people say he actually gets a straight stat buff. I'll see.
Reaction and what the narrative is trying to convey, I don't really think it would be as significant if Hakari and Jackpot could just tank this blow from Gojo. There's also the factor to keep in mind that this is something that made Yuta throw up, and even if you want to say we don't know if he was connected to Rika at that point, it wouldn't really matter because it's not like Yuta raises his reinforcement, and then on top of that, Yuta in base is already crazy strong. Ryu compared hitting Yuta to knocking against a water tank of cursed energy because even without Rika, his cursed energy volume is still massive. Yuta and Hakari are already around the same level and they both have the same reaction to the Gojo punch. Unless you think that base Hakari's durability is somewhat comparable to Yuta with all that cursed energy that he has in base, then it just makes it all the more likely that Hakari wasn't even in base to begin with. But
that is just, I mean, that's true. I didn't even think about it that way. That is true, Jaden. But what was he, I mean, I guess maybe just flexing, but like, what was he doing in Jackpot? That's such a strange thing. But, I mean, he could just be vibing. Never know. I mean, if I could just randomly become immortal for 4 minutes, 11 seconds, I'd probably do it too.
That's completely up for your own interpretation, but the bottom line here is that Hakari can take a Gojo punch and only end up throwing up, as opposed to Kashimo's lightning, which can completely tear through his entire body.
Later, once we get into the actual fight, I'll discuss if I think Kashimo would use his curse technique against Kenjaku. But to do a resume of this section, Kashimo in base is definitely heavy hitter level. He's probably on the high end with Yuta. Obviously with his curse technique, he's significantly stronger, pushing him to be one of the strongest in the verse. But is it enough to overcome Kenjaku? Well, now we're gonna go and assess Kenjaku's strength. First thing we're gonna look at is Kenjaku's fight against Choso and Yuki. Now straight away, he easily bodied Choso. Don't get me wrong, it was a good performance for Choso, and that definitely gave him some sort of upscale within the JJK power scaling community, but in no way was he comparable to Kenjaku. Yuki downright affirming this. And just looking at the fight, Choso was outright dominated, but he was able to force Kenjaku to use his gravity technique instead of curse spirit manipulation. Regardless, Kenjaku still didn't seem like he was pressed or anything with Yuki. He wasn't able to use his curse spirit manipulation because she defies concepts. So Kenjaku was forced to play into a fighting style that he's not dominant in. I'll expand on that more at the end of this section. Yuki's main goal is to beat up Kenjaku because she has the advantage physically, and this is something consistent with Kenjaku. More specifically, Geto's body. His strength has never come from his ability to fight hand to hand. It's all in the curse spirit manipulation. So when Geto got bodied by Toji, it doesn't mean he's a fraud and that he's not equal to Gojo in hidden inventory, but Geto just had the worst matchup because Toji is a direct counter to Geto's strength, which makes him look weak. In Volume 0, physically, Geto was getting outmatched by a Yuta who was in the moment basically still learning how to be a sorcerer. Even with all of this being said, Kenjaku still had an impressive fight against Yuki. His gravity technique was able—
Yeah, but ooh, darn, bad pound of pasta. And yeah, that is true. But it's so weird with that line statement from Gay about the grip check. But ultimately, that's still doo-doo butter, bro. Like, even if we say, oh, well, you know, Geto just had a bad matchup against Toji. If your stats are bad, that's not a matchup thing. You just suck. Like, is that wrong of me to say? Like, obviously, I do believe there are matchup checks. Like, I think Toji and Maki, because of how they work, they are built-in universe matchup. But then again, I call them, it's a mix. I call Toji and Maki the stat checks. Do you fail the speed stat check? AKA, when you roll for speed, are you slower than Toji and Maki? Uh-oh, you're getting sliced in half. Unfortunate, they're going to hit you with SSK. But characters like Gojo and Sukuna both pass the speed check and pass the hacks check to immediately body bag someone like Toji and Maki. But for Geto, he failed the stat roll. And he's failed the stat roll again against Yuta. And he failed the stat roll again against Yuki. And he failed the stat roll again. Like, he kept failing the stat roll. That's just really, really bad, especially against someone like Kashimo. But once again, it's that thick, juicy, scramdilliumptious, no mind. But
to just utterly destroy Yuki whenever it did affect her. And in hand-to-hand combat, he was reacting to Yuki. In the start where he gets his arms blown off, he clearly reacts. But since he isn't faster than Yuki, he can't dodge him. Kenjaku is reacting and blocking some of the attacks afterwards, but this Yuki is literally fighting while having like life-threatening injuries, losing hella blood, and Kenjaku still can't get an edge on her, despite the fact that she's pretty nerfed and with a weakened Star Rage, which to me only reinforces the point I had made earlier about Kenjaku, which was that his hand-to-hand combat is his weakness. On top of that, Yuki stated that with the kick that she landed, that if Star Rage wasn't weakened, she could have one-shotted Kenjaku. Choso tired him out physically too, so I think there's more than enough evidence backing that
And that is so embarrassing. I forgot. But then again, the one reason I don't bring up this panel whenever I'm like, I'll admit just straight down playing Kenjaku, is because this is Yuki's assumption. And Yuki makes a lot of assumptions. And then she dies. So like, it's this panel and the chipped away at his cursed energy panel. Those two I take with huge bags of salt. Because I'm like, Yuki, how do you know that? How do you know that? How can you tell that? Are you sure? Because you've been tricked before. You will be tricked again. I would not be shocked if like both of those statements were wrong. Because it doesn't make any sense for Kane to be tired from fighting Choso for as short of a time as he did when he was legit dominating him and barely moving. Right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But let's see.
Kenjaku isn't a physical fighter, which also explains why the plan to kill Kenjaku in Shijuku was for Yuta or Maki to sneak him. Regardless, this isn't an anti-feat for Kenjaku, because his strength lies in his techniques. When Maki said that they can't defeat him through conventional means, it's not an exaggeration or her being wrong.
I think it's her being flat out, straight up wrong. And let me talk. I'm going to talk about this in its own separate video more in depth, but since we're here and the panel's brought up, I might as well. We already knew it, but this serves as further confirmation we can't defeat Kenjaku through conventional means. I'm going to say it. And then you may be like, pencil. Unless I'm mistaken, you're one of the mightiest Maki meat munchers out there. Absolutely. But she has no idea what she's talking about. Not only was she not there to watch the fight, for one, but for two, she had no idea of Yuki's abilities and no idea of Choso's abilities. I genuinely think they just got information gamed by Kenjaku. She just didn't know. She had no idea what Kenjaku's stats were because she wasn't there. She had no idea what Yuki was because she wasn't there. Because remember, Yuki is a complete unknown. If Kenjaku didn't know, why would Maki know Yuki's level of direct strength, scaling, and speed, and all that? It's not like they sparred or anything. So ultimately, I think Maki's just flat out wrong. I think Yuta can beat Kenjaku in a head-to-head 1v1. I think the domain proves difficult, but if you think Yuta can small ball like the other community does, then Kenny gets cooked in a 1v1. If I think Maki cooks Kenny, 1v1 is difficult because of certain aspects, but if you go with certain speed scaling, then Maki diffs him. Toji diffs him. A lot of characters diff Kenny in not a lot of characters. A couple of characters in the higher tiers diff Kenny in 1v1 because he really ain't built like that. Especially if you go with his physical scaling. If you can get past them curses or have a way to one-shot the lot of them, Kenny, that poor boy is good. But let's see.
Him fighting Kenjaku fairly isn't smart at all, because of all of the cursed spirits he has in disposal. And Kenjaku said it best himself. The strength of cursed spirit manipulation lies in the great number of moves at my disposal. I wield multiple cursed spirits of semi-grade 1 and higher, and may simply release more when opponents solve the cursed techniques and overcome them. Then he adds on that if he doesn't have enough time for that, he may simply just pile on the attacks. Many people in the verse don't have the abilities to handle this. Yuta and Yuki are the best fit to handle him, but other people will fail easily, which is why Kenjaku is so strong. Mei even groups him in with the likes of Gojo and Sukuna. Imagine if you don't have an ad clear type of ability like Yuki or Yuta, and you have to handle.
Yeah, the thing with Yuta is that since curses are never shown to be able to reinforce parts of their body with cursed energy, Yuta, if he's in full power mode, can just yell, die, repeatedly with cursed speech, and they all die. Like, legitimately, curse tech spirit manipulation is useless against him. He can just keep repeating that, and it'll take no energy from him. Especially if he's connected to Rika, naturally, because he has his curse technique activated. And Yuki, once again, she can just brute force him. And the reason I say Maki and Toji is because of SSK and his speed gap. I think it's basically impossible to assume that any curse that Kenny has is faster than Maki or Toji. And let's say they all get diffed by SSK. The reason why anyone else struggles is because it would take one hit each. So say Kenny releases 10 curses, that takes 10 hits. By the time they did 10 hits to those 10 curses, Kenny releases another 10, and another 10, and another 10, and another 10. And while characters like Maki and Toji could run through that, or a character like Yuta could keep screaming die, or keep releasing RCT from his body to immediately one-shot them, or someone like Yuki could just keep swinging Garuda in time. Not many other characters can do that against CSM.
Kenjaku's gravity and hundreds of cursed spirits at the same time. Buddy, you're cooked. And I know Mr. Plant gotta be proud that I just defended his GOAT. Despite Kenjaku having these physical weaknesses, his strengths cannot be defeated by conventional means, which is why they had to sneak him. Even though Yuta can handle the spirits, he also just didn't have the time to full-on fight Kenjaku. So this was the best option they had. I know this explanation was pretty lengthy, but I really do want to give you guys the best insight I possibly can. So to summarize, Kenjaku's strength is based off cursed spirit manipulation, Maki stating they can't beat him by conventional means, which puts him above all the other sorcerers, Mei grouping Kenjaku with guys like Sukuna and Gojo, and his weaknesses is his physical capabilities, but he has a very strong and effective set of.
I would take those. The Mei statement and the Maki statement are two I cannot take because of their lack of information. Those are the two where I'm like, no, I don't think so. Which is bad because it's like Maki and Mei, but like, I don't know. I can trust Mei on the reinforcement cap stuff because that makes sense. Putting Kenny on the same level of Gojo and Sukuna when everything else in the narrative argues heavily against that, including the very interaction that Kenny has had with Gojo and Sukuna. Taking Maki's statement at face value when she has no information on how that fight went or any of the raw power or speed stats of Yuki. So like, I don't know. I'm iffy on that. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't, because like I wouldn't put Kenny stat wise above Yuta, stat wise above Maki, stat wise above Jackpot Akari, stat wise above Yuji. Like I wouldn't do any of that. I don't know, but let's see.
Abilities. And just to clarify, not saying Kenjaku is above Yuta or Yuki, but I'm just putting it out there that he's just not immense.
He is above Yuki though. Domain DD. No, not DD. not Dragon Dance. Domain GG. Let's see.
Below them, even if he is. I do think Yuta is stronger than Kenjaku regardless.
I agree.
The fight would have definitely been super different if he fought him face to face, and the Yuki fight would have went different if they had a rematch. But that's not
I don't think either of those
video at all. That's just my opinion. Now finally, we have arrived at the grand stage of the video, Kashimo vs Kenjaku. To break down this fight, I'll point out the advantages and weaknesses they have against each other. Starting with Kenjaku. For him, the biggest threat is going to be Kashimo's lightning. As we saw in the Hikari fight, he can aim for your head and pop you. And Kashimo knows to aim for the head with Kenjaku because, I mean, it's pretty obvious. He's in different bodies. It's not a secret. Everyone knows he can do this. If Kashimo is able to close the distance and cross the void between him and Kenjaku, the lightning strike could be a game ender. And Kashimo has the physical advantage too, as we've established beforehand. The bad part for Kashimo is the void, aka the distance between him and Kenjaku. Kenjaku has multiple spirits in his arsenal that could potentially counter and stop Kashimo, but this is all very unknown territory because we haven't seen much from Kenjaku in this aspect.
And that's the one thing. I hate talking about Kenny and Geto because it comes into, but there's a spirit that could have this domain or that domain or this. Where is it? Where is it? If he had it, why didn't he use it? Oh, but the people he fought probably matched up against them. Yes, of course. But I can't assume until I see. I can't. I just don't want to. I don't want to. You would have to prove it. Where is it? Huh? He says so? Cool story, bro. Where are they at? Why didn't he use it? Why didn't he spam them? I don't know. They ain't there. But I give it sometimes. I give it because like, might as well. And I'm a Jaku Jacker at heart. So like, I'm mostly fine with it, but still. And like, especially for the Yuta matchup. Because like, there are still people, and hey, I used to be people, so I don't blame him. There's still people who be like, well, even if Yuta has small ball, he'd still get overwhelmed by the curses. But I'm like, what curses? What curses? What curse if Yuta was able to spit in Kuro's mouth immediately while trying to suppress himself? What curse is Kenny throwing out that's actually going to diff Yuta? Or give any diff to Yuta? Especially if Rika's actually there fighting alongside. Come on now. Plus small ball, come on now. Let's see.
There's also the question of, can Kashimo overcome the spirits that Kenjaku puts out? If it's a singular curse, I don't think it should be much of a problem because his lightning does negate durability to a certain extent. And since the strike has a higher output than anything else, it has a very good chance of ripping through Kenjaku's arsenal. But where it really starts to get bad for Kashimo is if Kenjaku does, as he told Yuji, where he just piles curses on Kashimo. Because Kashimo has one strike and then it's on cooldown. He could get overwhelmed because outside of his lightning strike, he doesn't have an ad clear. This is not looking too good.
The one thing I'll admit about Kashimo's ability is not that it has a cooldown. I think that Akari panel gets misinterpreted a lot. The only cooldown, quote unquote, is that he needs to replace the charges. Ultimately, making contact with Kashimo at all is dangerous because see, those charges are being placed on you regardless. Of course, it takes a couple of times. So say a curse spirit were to latch on to Kashimo, that wouldn't immediately result in a bolt. But say hypothetically Kashimo were to bang, 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 bang. Like say he hits each curse spirit 5 times. Let's say 5 times is the amount of time for the lightning bolt to come off. The bolt will come out instant after instant after instant after instant after instant as long as all the charges are placed. There isn't actually an innate cooldown on the bolt itself. It's just how many times Kashimo gets the charges off to trigger the bolt chemical reaction. That's the thing. There isn't actually a cooldown. But specifically, it wouldn't work too well for Kashimo here because he would still need to make contact. And it really depends on if the bolt would stop at a body, stop at a person, or if it would do it against Akari when it was coming through the staff and reached Kashimo, where it would go straight through. Where it would just launch straight through and keep going and then eventually peter out. I think it really depends on what Kashimo wants to do with it. But it could hypothetically clear a path for him. But let's see.
For Kashimo, if Kashimo somehow closes the void between him and Kenjaku, he still has to deal with gravity, which no one else aside from Yuki knows how it really works. I'm aware Choso saw it, but he doesn't know the details of the technique at all. And bro didn't even realize it was gravity when Kenjaku used it right in front of him. Kashimo for sure isn't aware of this. And he's gonna get hit hard by the technique. The worst part about this is Kashimo doesn't seem to have RCT. So if he gets packed up like Yuki did, it's so wraps for him. Cause he won't have Choso and Garuda to distract Kenjaku. Kenjaku was able to cut Yuki in half with this technique. There's no doubt he could do the same to Kashimo. That's just with the gravity technique. Usually what he'd do is he holds you down, crushes you with his cursed spirits, and that's it. So in a conventional fight, I don't really see Kashimo winning this fight. But if Kashimo's able to sneak Kenjaku, he's definitely going to be able to do the same as Yuta, in the sense that he could one-shot Kenjaku with a lightning strike.
Unironically though, like the thing about Yuta is that he has a blade. He can immediately go for the head. Think about Maki. She had a blade. She can immediately go for the head. And it would immediately remove the dome piece. If Kashimo wants to lay 5 hits on Kenny, I don't think they're staggering him as much as Yuki's first initial punch did. So I could see Kashimo going 1, 2, 3, 4. But then by the time the 4th hit is landing and the 5th is about and Kashimo's about to leap back and do the bolt, Kenny's hit this. He's hit the domain and then boom. Because I don't think a base Kashimo punch is knocking Kenny's head off. So realistically, even if Kashimo were to get the sneak, unless he has a bolt pre-prepared on Kenny somehow, I don't think he'd be able to do it. I think he would need, because he doesn't have the AP to immediately just knock off Kenny's stone piece. He would get Curse Spirit Diff, or then he would get, well, not, see, that's the thing, Curse Spirit Diff is weird because of how many curses Kenny can release at once. But if he can release out enough curses in time or pop domain, then Kashimo still dies. Let's see.
Almost did it to Hikari, and Hikari has the best RCT in the series. Kenjaku is definitely not surviving that, but the cursed spirits are still gonna lose control, and it's questionable if Kashimo has the ad clearing ability that Yuta has with Rika. On top of that, domain would just be overkill for Kashimo. Even though Kashimo does have Hollow Wicker Basket, it just negates Sure Hit, which isn't necessary for Kenjaku if he's just gonna spam curses inside the domain. So that measure for Kashimo won't even help him at all. Now let's talk about if Kashimo would use his curse technique against Kenjaku. Honestly, I really doubt he would, because he has been determined, and he said himself, to only use it against Sukuna. Like, bro has waited hundreds of years to use it for Sukuna, and Sukuna only, so I doubt he would. Like, even with Hikari, he basically would have died and lost that fight, and he still didn't use it. So I really do think he'd rather die than use his technique for anyone else other than Sukuna. But even if he were to use his technique, he's still not aware of Kenjaku's gravity technique. He's not going to be able to blitz Kenjaku by normal means. Because even when Yuta snuck Kenjaku, he had no idea this was going to happen, he still reacted very quickly and was able to turn around and start to activate his technique.
I think if NBA Kashimo, like, he starts an NBA and he like, say both are standing like this across from each other, and Kashimo's in the NBA, if he throws up his hand and blasts an electromagnetic wave, Kenjaku's dead. Is that crazy? I think with base Kashimo already having such good relativity to the heavy hitters, and Kenjaku seemingly at best being on their level, but likely being lower just due to his lack of physical stats, I could easily see an NBA Kashimo actually blitzing Kenny out of existence before he can activate domain, before he can spawn any curses. And the thing is, the ad wipe, the ad clear that he didn't have before, the large range, he would then have. When Kenjaku goes to launch curses at him, instead of having to wait for a bolt to pop off, Kashimo opens his palm, and suddenly there's an electromagnetic wave that irradiates and annihilates everything that comes in contact with it. Kenjaku likely included. And I'm not sure if the gravity technique would work on light itself or the electromagnetic waves that Kashimo fires. So, bada bing, bada boom, Kenny dies. I think NBA may cook him unless Kenny domains. Kenny has to essentially, the second he sees NBA activating, the staff gets thrown away, he has to domain or else he dies. At least in my opinion. But let's see.
Once again, the only thing Kashimo has is if somehow he could get past the void between him and Kenjaku. A lightning strike to the head would win him the fight. In conclusion, Kenjaku would win against Kashimo. There are some scenarios where Kashimo could sneak in a W, but under normal circumstances, Kenjaku is a bad matchup for Kashimo. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. If you guys have any video ideas, make sure to let me know in the comments. And if I do that video, you will be shouted out. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. See you.
Alright, I will let that wrap after I'm done, but there'll be a video. Whew, I nearly sliced that open. That would have been bad. Well, not sliced. I would have just hit it. But still, W video. Yeah, I agree. Ironically enough, he went a lot more in the CSN route than the domain route. I personally, just because of the stat gap that's implied between Kenny and the heavy hitters, would have been screaming domain, because Kashimo doesn't really have an answer for that. But still, he ended up mentioning in the end. Overall, W video. What do you guys think, though? Who do you have in Kashimo versus Kenjaku? Like I said, I lean towards Kenjaku just because of domain. and Kashimo's enrolling us to use NBA. But that's me. What do you guys think? Let me know down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please do me a favor and leave cursed lightning in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you support me for as low as $1. Come on, down below. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. Just now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks include the live reactions to the series I happen to review, ad-free variants of all my videos, and becoming a $20 Patreon or a $20 member. You can order whatever video you want. Also do a link to my cult finance description down below where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 20 beans for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our sketch tier members: Greyhound, Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Super Flame Zero, Brandon Payne, Glacier XE, and G Prosper. And then I'd like to give a big old thank you to our line art tier patrons: Sean, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin, Encarnacion, Igneo Lind, and A+A. And I'd like to give a big old thank you to our Ink tier members: Fine, Austin Wimberly Euchia, and Yuki Alla. Then I'd like to give a big old gargantuan thank you to our digital art tier members: J Warrior and AZ Void. Then I'd like to give a big gargantuan thank you to our colored art tier patrons: Overlord Zero, Joaquin Munoz, and Item Okami. And I'd like to give a final gargantuan, supersized, sweet mother of mercy, that kidney will be yours one day, or the Black Myth video, whichever comes first, possibly both. That guy with a pencil tier patron, Calvin Elder.